What's up, Wildcat fans? Number 22 Arizona looks to bounce back in a real way against the Utah Utes tomorrow night in the McHale Center. But the running Utes are under new management. How is that going to affect the matchup? I'm Kevin Thomas from the AZ Wildcats Podcast to break down this matchup for you today. And yeah, you heard me say it off the top. Craig Smith, the head coach of the Utah Utes, was let go just mere days before the matchup with the Arizona Wildcats. So let's take a closer look at Utah under Craig Smith's tenure. A 65-62 record, 0 tournament appearances in the 3 full seasons that Utah played. They are not on pace to make the tournament this season. I also wanted to mention that Utah won 22 games last season, but unfortunately dropped 8 of the final 12 games to fall out of the NCAA tournament field. And it's also worth mentioning that Arizona went 5-1 against Craig Smith coach teams while he was at Utah. That one loss being in December of 2022 in Salt Lake City. But you might be asking yourself, well, who's going to take over in the meantime for Craig Smith's Utah Utes? That would be assistant coach Josh Eilert, who was actually the interim coach last year at West Virginia after Bob Huggins was fired, and was the main reason why Kerr Kriisa ended up in a West Virginia Mountaineers jersey. Believe it or not, there's an Arizona connection everywhere you look. But let's look a little bit further into this matchup with the Utah Utes. Coach Tommy Lloyd spoke to the idea that he thinks that the game's going to look very similar to what it would have looked like even if Craig Smith was still coaching. Here is Tommy Lloyd on what he expects from the Utah Utes.
Utah is a good team. They have incredible size and length. I think, I don't know if would this be analytically or this be, statistically or measurement-wise, they're the third longest, tallest team in the country. So they have obviously great size and they have, positional length. They're sound defensively. They're not doing anything crazy. They're really, kind of packing it in and making you play over size and length consistently. Offensively, this Madsen kid's been around for a minute, and he just is an incredible high energy player, and can shoot high degree of difficulty shots and get hot and make some of them, and so he's hard to guard, and they do a good job playing in their concepts, kind of what we would call like kind of some delay actions, and where they're kind of getting some 5-out and some flare screens, pin downs, and just do a really good job kind of flowing and playing good basketball. So, they're obviously a dangerous team. And, their records, I think pretty close to 500 in the Big 12, right? So they're right in the mix.
Well, Tommy Lloyd's a very smart man, but one thing he was wrong about in that is Utah is not in the mix in the Big 12 this season, despite their almost 500 record. They're 9th in the conference, which is still an improvement considering they were projected to finish last in the Big 12 preseason polls. They do have some notable wins. Tommy Lloyd's not wrong to say that they're a dangerous team. They are a dangerous team. They own wins over BYU in overtime at home, Cincinnati at home, and then also both Kansas schools, Kansas and Kansas State, where they scored 74 points each at home and got the victory there. But the problem for Utah seems to be away from home. They are 1-7 in true road games, 1-8 if you include the Mississippi State loss. That is including 5 straight road losses coming into this game in McHale. Utah has also lost 13 straight games in the McHale Center, so the numbers are not backing the Utes in this matchup. But Tommy Lloyd was also right to say that Utah was one of the tallest teams in the nation, and that could give Arizona some problems, especially when they don't have as much front court depth as some other teams in this conference. Utah might be able to give them issues with not only their size, but their ability to shoot the ball. Gabe Madsen, you heard Tommy Lloyd mention it there, a very interesting player for the Utah Utes. He leads the conference in threes made, and he also leads the conference in threes attempted. So he's a high-volume three-point shooter that, if he gets it going, can really flip a game on its head. He did it against Kansas State, and he did it against Kansas as well. He scored 23 points, I believe, in their game against UCF that they just previously lost. Let's take a look under the hood at the Utah Utes. Little bit closer here. 15-12 record, 7-9 in the Big 12. An offensive rating of 112.3, which is good for 88th in the nation. Defensive rating of 101.8, good for 72nd. And that tempo is above the pack a little bit at 106th. And their strength of schedule is pretty decently high at 57th as well. Like I mentioned, not a strong road team, and this is a road game for the Utah Utes. And that kind of plays into one of my predictions for this one, because when Utah and Arizona play, if Arizona wins, it's not going to be pretty. The three losses that Utah has taken from Tommy Lloyd have come by an average of 21 points. The spread for this game is about 14, depending upon where you look for this one. And I think that Utah is not a very good team on the road. I expect after Arizona's most previous performance, where Tommy Lloyd was on the guys about not only their effort, but their approach to the game, he said he expected the best practice he's seen all year from this Arizona team, and he expects the results to carry into Wednesday's matchup against the Utah Utes. And that brings me to my keys to this game, Kev's keys for Arizona versus Utah. First key is going to be defensive intensity. Utah turned the ball over 19 times in their matchup with UCF, which really proved to be overall just a killer for the Utes in that game. It's hard to overcome that many turnovers. And like I said, based in the last game that Arizona unfortunately lost at home to BYU, they're going to be looking to turn the other team over constantly. Very intense traps, very intense, switches. I think overall the focus and the level of effort on defense will be very high in this matchup with the Utah Utes. Key number 2 is going to be ball security. Turning the other team over does nothing for you if you are turning the ball over just as much as they are. And last game, Arizona against BYU really had some uncharacteristic turnovers in that one. Some would even say giveaways in that game. And that is not winning basketball for Arizona. If you can't shoot like Arizona struggles to do, taking care of the ball is an essential key to victory. So Arizona's going to have to flip that script in this game. And that brings me to key number 3, bench mafia. We need you in this game. KJ Lewis, Carter Bryant, Trey Townsend, we need you in this game. I'm not saying it's make or break whether or not each of those guys scores a certain amount of points or not, but 23 points from the bench in that game versus BYU. 13 of those came from the man who's been making it happen all season, KJ Lewis, and 5 from Carter Bryant and Trey Townsend, respectively. I do expect a little bit more out of Carter Bryant in this matchup. I think he's going to be looking to get his on the offensive side. I think his kind of size and skill combination is going to cause the Utes some problems when he's in the game, but it's up to him to stay locked in on the defensive side, and so he can stay in the game. So those are my 3 keys to this game: defensive intensity, ball security, and the bench mob has to come through for Arizona if they want to get it done at home. So that's the matchup between the Arizona Wildcats, ranked number 22 in the nation, and the Runnin' Utes heading to Tucson, Arizona in the McHale Center tomorrow night to face off in the Big 12 this time, their first time facing off in the brand new conference. What do you think? How do you think this game is going to look? What's your prediction? Let us know in the comments below. Follow me at Kevo Posts. Follow the podcast at PHNX_Wildcats on Twitter. And as always, bear down and go Cats.